Good evening, good morning, and good night, everybody. Welcome to Stat Check, a slightly delayed episode to this week. Apologies for that. We had some technical issues with my mic deciding it didn't want to work, and Nathan trying to get an emotional support cat in place. I am Innes. I am joined by Nathan and Jeremy this week. Anthony is taking a regularly scheduled break from thinking about Warhammer because if he does it for too long, he has an aneurysm, and we don't really want to do that to him right now. So we're going to save him for this Thursday's bonus show rather than burning him out this week on the game because, frankly, we don't always want to listen to Anthony whining about the game, and Anthony doesn't always be the one that's being whiny and negative about the game, despite the fact that he almost always is. So we're giving him a break. We're putting him back in his box. He came out to tell us about his WC experience, and now we're preventing him from critical Eldar exposure. That's really what's going on right now. This is episode 59, Slated for Development. We are here to talk to you about things that aren't the balanced data slate because that's on Thursday and we record on Tuesdays. Really sorry about that. We unfortunately are subject to the passage of time like everyone else and can't tell you all the juicy things that are happening in it because we don't know them either. What that does mean, and you can mark your calendars with this, 12 EST on Thursday or 5 p.m. UK, we will be going live for some form of bonus content about the data slate. It should be out by 5 p.m. That's the end of the working day. And I start work at 7 that day, so I got a couple hours. So we're going to try and squeeze something in right there to talk about our initial balanced data slate hot takes. We have currently promised that at least 3 of us will be there, potentially up to 5 or 6 of us to talk about the balanced data slate, all of our hot takes, all of our opinions. So that is the goal there. So if you are waiting for balanced data slate content, come back. We'll probably actually make that one just a regularly scheduled episode to make it number 60 because it works cool. But maybe we won't. We'll see. We'll decide how we're feeling on the day. But with that,
I've reserved a conference room for it.
You've reserved a conference room. That's honestly that I like wrote it down on my calendar because I'm self-employed. So
I had to email my department administrator and reserve a conference room.
Well, what we'll do then is we'll start off with a little bit of how are you guys doing? Type it, Jeremy and Nathan. How are you getting on? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to do the usual. We're going to run through the stats. We're going to run through what we've been up to. I'm probably going to do a little bit of an extended session on Death Guard because everybody wants to talk about Death Guard, apparently. It's been a very Nurgle themed week for me, I think. And then we are going to talk a little bit about what we're looking for from the balanced data slate, what we're hoping for in terms of expectations. I mean, there'll be not so much content because at this point it's written. There's no point contributing to that. But what are we hoping it'll bring to the game? We'll wrap up with some show questions. We'll keep it to the normal 90 minutes because you guys have got a bunch of extra us coming next week. With that said, Jeremy, how are you getting on?
Doing well. Another quiet weekend. Well, not necessarily quiet, but when we talk about the stats, we'll clarify how much it wasn't quiet. But it was nice. It was a long weekend here in Canada. We had our Labor Day. Yeah, it was. It was nice. It was nice and quiet. Last week I played a game of 10th against Francois. We threw my sisters into his Grey Knights. Notably, Grey Knights with 0 Terminators because he didn't own any. And it was probably one of the most scuffed games the two of us have ever played. Both in terms of just not understanding how to kill each other and also dice just being insanely silly.
And was that one of your mandated no more than 4 games a week or...
Oh, no. Yeah, that was it's actually my first game of 40K in a little while. But that's because I told myself September was going to be a quiet month, and I am holding myself to that. I'm doing a lot of hobby work instead. I finally got around to starting to build my Leviathan boxes, which have just been sitting on a shelf since I picked them up at the end of June.
Got 12 on Ryan's I need to build still, and then I'm done with the boxes besides the three like the extra duplicates of characters and the 3 and like the other 2 screamer killers.
I've got
4 because I hate that head.
It's hilarious because I bought an extra 2 sprues of Sternguard, which also has the Biologist and the Lone Op Lieutenant. I was like, what am I going to do with this? All right, who wants
3 Biologists is fine because if you play
I have
Death
4
Watch,
now.
A world for 2. 4 is too many. I can see running 2 if you're running the Indomitor build, which I think is kind of cool and might be a direction to go after the slate. But yeah, I would not. Yeah. I don't think you need 4. I don't think you can't.
Of course, I dove into my bits box, made this lovely fella.
Power Fist and Hammer.
Nah. Shield and hammer.
Hammer shield.
The shield
is
go for objectively worse than the Power Fist and the grenade launcher strapped to it.
It looks cool.
When has that ever been a concern, Jeremy?
Sometimes rule of cool is more important.
This is true. Also, the Hammer Power Fist just looks weird.
No, it doesn't.
Is it? If you could swing with both, I'd take both.
The Power Fist is there for the grenade keyword.
I know it's there for the grenade keyword, but I don't care about the grenade keyword.
Well, I do love the idea of that Power Fist chucking grenades, though. I'm sure it's an underslung grenade launcher or something.
It's top mounted.
Really,
it's from one of the store anniversary ones. It's like here, like on his fist, it's just like massive grenades.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's great.
And just so Ben McJurek knows, because yes, this is directly targeted at him because he gives us money when I put the cat on.
Thanks, Ben. Congratulations to Ben who got his Team Scotland tattoo this week, by the way. I'm very impressed. He also got a Team USA one, like he just got Team Scotland, but yeah, he put us all to shame because none of us have one. So
continuing the trend of being the most Scottish person in any room, apparently.
He's doing a great job. Nathan, how have you been? Have you managed to ruin any Crusade leagues locally recently?
No, we don't start any Crusade leagues for a couple months, actually. The signups for one just started, and I'm not actually going to participate. I know, right? Mostly because
a new NID book to torment people with.
I do, but it's
a
actually
Crusade section in it.
But the Crusade section is the same as the old NID book. I read the Goonhammer review today of the Crusade section. I was like, oh, so they just copy pasted the old Crusade rules into the new Crusade rules and changed like a couple of things around because they didn't.
You still get an ignore invulnerable save flying high turret?
No, you cannot. They took that. Well, I mean, I don't think the Blackstone relic still exists, which was how you ignored invulnerable saves with that guy. I'd have to look. I haven't actually looked at the Crusade rules basically at all for this edition. So I don't really know what they do.
I'm not convinced they exist until I look at them, and I'm never going to look at them. So
I know they created like skill trees essentially for monsters and vehicles, which is the other thing. But I don't know. I spent the weekend in Minnesota with my family, so I didn't really play any 40K. I was desperately trying to keep up with like reviews and YouTube stuff for the Tyranid book when all that happened on Saturday. But I was at the Minnesota State Fair eating various fried foods on sticks basically that day instead, because that's what you do at state fairs in the United States. Eat even more deep fried food than usual. And yeah, that's it. I've been painting Tyranids. I got some vines in to put onto my Wraith Knight though, which is kind of fun because I've been painting all the bronze Eldar stuff, which makes me very happy because they all look just like Fae popping out of floral highlands to steal people's children and such. Yeah, that's it. I'm not even playing in 40K anymore. I don't know. Just paint.
What? We're not going to play now?
Oh, we're going to play, Jeremy.
Okay.
We're going to play our new like nerd date on the weekly basis.
Hell yeah.
Where we play 40K with terrible armies against each other.
So you're both going to just submit your normal tournament list?
Oh.
Yes. Well, considering most of my tournament lists are just your tournament lists in this, it says more about you than anybody else in the room.
I hear you like Death Guard now then.
Oh, I don't have a Death Guard army to do, so I'm going to keep stealing other lists. I think I screen capped your like handwritten Tyranids draft list from the weekend. I think I'm just going to submit that exact. I'm going to submit that screen cap to Armed Forces Day at the end of September. Just the screen cap of that list, just to make Jeremy real sad when he does list
I'll
checks.
write a list in crayon for you, Nathan.
Yes, if you write an actual decent Tyranids list in crayon, I will submit it to
I'll do that
as an image. Do it. I'll do it.
I'll do that.
There we go.
We can coordinate that.
No, what you need to do is you need to scan it and then OCR it to see if it's actually legible, and then you can upload it.
No,
oh, Jesus. I was just gonna raw submit crayon. the Scottish flag will be in the corner of it. It'll be great.
I'm gonna have like a little picture in the corner that's like by Innis age 26 on it and stuff like that. It's gonna be great.
Holy fuck! I keep forgetting how young you are.
I mean, Innis just reminded me that he is a full solid decade younger than me.
Than both of us.
Yeah, than both of us.
Sorry, guys.
I'm currently, there's so much tattoo chalk in the chat, and I'm currently thinking about another tattoo, but I
heard the Team Scotland logo was quite popular.
I don't know what it will be. All of my tattoos have been pretty like non meaning centric, and more just like, what is my artist doing right now? That sounds cool, and doing that.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's it. How about you, Ennis? What have you been up to?
So I went to a tournament this week. As some people might remember from last week, I decided on a somewhat of a whim, partly because I was ostensibly TOing the tournament. Mostly, it's a 30-person GT. It runs itself, basically. I had a ref and a ringer there that meant that I could just play. So I was kind of that, and the fact that Brian's in my local meta, and Brian's playing Eldar right now, and Brian's quite good at Warhammer, and I'm not better than Brian on Eldar. Doesn't really matter what I'm doing. So I decided that I was going to try and look for an alternative win condition, shall we say, of how do I give myself the most opportunity to have this tournament feel like it's gone well without having to actually try and win it. And the answer I came up with was to pull the 21st best army in the game and slam it into some tournament games, which went better than I expected. So I ended up finishing 3-1-1 with my losses to Chaos Space Marines and my draw to Space Marines, and my wins against Tau and Eldar twice.
That's a very strange win-loss record, I won't lie. That's not where those wins or those losses or those draws sound like they should be, buddy.
The loss is understandable. The loss I actually think is like the hardest yellow matchup, the hardest red matchup that the list has, and I'll talk a little bit about that.
Cool.
But the basic gist is I played a list that was basically built around the concept of Plagueburst Crawlers with Ignore modifiers being fairly reasonable shooting with indirect to force your opponent to like do things on the game. They can't just sit on their backfield. You can actually kill like small units. And the Entropy Cannon being an okay gun, a 24-inch range, strength 10 las cannon. It's not the worst thing in the world. Back that up with a Land Raider for even more of that kind of shooting, even more of that defensive profile. And I have a wall of, it's 36, 52. It's like 70 wounds of two up armor save, toughness 10 plus. It's not like insurmountable. There are plenty of armies that don't have a great answer for that. And just drive that on the board of people and then shove a bunch of Chaos Lords in it. Because activation locking is a very real thing that's being more and more discussed, which is basically the premise that your opponent has to allocate resources to killing your stuff, right? Like that's not really a fundamental like thing that should be surprising to anybody, but when you have a ton of individual little things that all have weird variants on them. So Chaos Lords, that I had 5 Chaos Lords that are functionally their toughness 6, 6 wounds each, 2 up armor save and a 4 mortal save, and they're usually in cover, which isn't too hard to get in 10th edition. Now what that means is that you might have a gun that's pretty good at killing that profile, but do you have 6 of them to kill 6 different units that are all that profile? Because if that's a squad of 6 guys, it dies to like whatever. But it's very easy to overkill or underkill that kind of unit. And I had 6 of them plus 3 Fall Blight spawns that are kind of a smaller version of the same thing, but it's 9 individual units. Do you have 9 guns that reasonably kill like a Terminator character? Probably not, which means that some of them are going to get to keep doing things, even though they're reasonably squishy. You're just kind of like, hey, this is in front of you. You have to deal with this. But also, the kind of guns that kills them is probably the kind of stuff that kills the Plagueburst Crawlers and the Land Raider and Mortarion. And just try to make your opponent not have enough physical capacity through their guns to deal with your units in time to stop you scoring. So I can just, if I have 2 or 3 of them live, one of them dives in the middle, slams down a teleport bomber, the other one jumps onto your objective and tags a vehicle so that it's going to have to fall back and can't shoot into X and Y, and it takes -1 to hit into Mortarion or, whatever, right? Just start causing problems, start scoring secondaries. All the while, you're killing the things that are good at killing that sort of thing with the Plagueburst Crawlers, because you don't really care about the stuff that, I don't really care about a Wraith Knight or a Fire Prison, but if I can kill the Wart Spiders and the like the Guardians and the other stuff that has to stand on objectives, eventually, a Chaos Lord behind a wall sitting on an objective doesn't have anything that can run at it anymore, and it just gets to sit there on an objective. Just sit there on an objective and score points. And that was the basic premise, and that worked great in every game except the one where I didn't know what I was doing because it was game 1, and I had never moved a Land Raider on a WTC board before. And it turns out that's really hard. And if you're not expecting it to be hard, you'll make some small mistakes. And I definitely made a bunch of like little mistakes with my list that game that ended up being just not going the way I wanted. I also a little bit, by the way that I played it badly, I gave myself the opportunity to get a little dice scammed. Mortarion got charged by a squad of Blade Guard with a captain and a lieutenant with no oath up. And they went, okay, so that's like 17, it's like 20 something attacks with Lance plus one AP, lethal hits. I'm like, it's like sum total 8 saves, damage 1. I've got 7 wounds left. Fail 7 out of 8 4-ups, and all my feel no pains and die to literally nothing.
God damn.
It was It was very sad. I'm not gonna lie. I was definitely set up with like Mortarion ready to slam the heel. It was like a primary swing. It was a card swing. It was horrible. I was very upset. I think I got a little flustered at that when I tried to like command reroll a save after feeling bits. I'm like, that's not how that works. And I'm like, I know it's not. I don't know why I'm doing this.
I'm just so shocked at what just happened.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like sitting there, just like actively being shell shocked. This is the same turn that like Typhus has just spent like 3 turns of combat with like 5 assault and 5 like heavy intercessors, just like bouncing every turn because he's AP2. I'm like, oh my god, this is awful. So I ended up drawing that game 10-10. Then I beat a Tau list 13-7. Basically, just was able to put a ton of stuff in the middle of Tau. I don't know if anybody's read the Tau rules. They're not great at split firing.
They're not.
What?
So I just had like an army of dudes, just a sea of dudes in front of me. It's like, I get to fire at one of these, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Good
I mean,
luck.
they can split fire.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't, though.
When you're just like repeatedly chain charging the one crisis squad that's got guys
Yeah.
left, it's just like, it was great. It was very funny. So I ended up winning that one 13-7. Then I played CSM, and okay, so that army does a lot of damage, and it doesn't really have activation issues when you're stood in front of it. That army can have a little bit of issues with that range, but we played supply drop, and I went first. And I'm sitting there like, I don't have an out here. There is literally like part of playing a list like this is in some way you will have a competitive advantage against the list. It doesn't matter if it's a big one, a small one, right? There is in any game of 40k, there is something that your list probably does better than your opponent's list. Even into Eldar, right? You are going to be better at something than Eldar are, and it's your job to make the game as much about that as you can and to deny their advantages, right? That's like kind of the fundamentals of competitive play is you're good at something, your opponent's good at something. Your job is to prioritize the things that you're good at and disallow your opponent to make the thing about their list, right? So an Eldar army, you want to not get shot, right? That's kind of the core concept. They're better at shooting than you. Can you score points better than them? Maybe you might be faster than them. Now the imbalance there comes that Eldar are so pushed that they, despite being worse at things, it doesn't matter because their guns are so good, right? Like you kind of get into this. If you can make the game about the thing that you're good at, then there is always a chance. CSM were better at literally every single thing that I could think about for that game. I could not shoot better than them, fight better than them, score better than them, stand in the open better than them, stand on objectives better than them, get to objectives faster than them, hit harder than them when I'm there. The only thing I had was 3 PBCs of indirect, which are terrible into Aurora Contempt, and the Nurgle Stratagem. That was the only competitive advantage I had, and we were playing supply drop, and I'm going first. I genuinely don't think there was a way that I could have approached this game besides going for scamming high rolls. So I went for scamming high rolls, and it didn't work. Like, fair enough. You can't if your game plan going into it is I'm going to try and scam you and the scamming doesn't work, then yeah, sorry, that wasn't a real game plan. It was a Hail Mary, and you can't bank on a Hail Mary. I went for stuff like just ingressing Abaddon and ingressing Mortarion and charging Abaddon squad and just like hoping to high roll. I killed 2 Terminators and then died back and just like horrible stuff like that. So that game was really rough. Alan actually ended up going second in the event. He went undefeated, so it was not the most unhappy loss. I played him the previous week as well with Thousand Suns and won that game, so it was okay. He got his vengeance a little bit. It just took me playing Death Guard for him to get it. No. Yeah, I don't think the highlight of that game was Typhus dropping down, smiting himself, charging Abaddon, not getting to fight because Mortarion killed everyone in base contact with him, and he didn't want to pile into Abaddon, and then dying immediately, on the clapback. So Typhus successfully did 2 damage to himself, and that was his game impact on the game.
Nice.
Yeah, just very normal stuff from the chapter master of the Death Guard. Then I bounced overnight into Eldar. And the first Eldar game was double Wraith Knight, one of which did have a sword, because Mark was being nice and didn't want to push too hard on the advantage. So it was 3 Wraith Knight heavy Wraith cannons, and then like triple fire, I think it was double fire prism and various other like some scoring elements and so that sort of stuff. And I looked at this and I went, okay, I'm going to deploy on the line and try to go first. And I deployed on the line and I went first. and I drove my entire army forward, fired one land raider worth of las cannons, and that was it. And got on all three of the objectives, my home objective and the two in middle in vital ground. So there's no middle objective in this mission, which is very helpful because it means it's a fairly low scoring primary mission, and my opponent's going to have to come to me. Yes, it's very confusing. Talking about the unit typhus, not Polish typhus. Sorry, we're going to bring on our next host is actually just going to be called Wraithguard. We're going to confuse everybody. So, yeah, I drove forward, fired, managed to convert one whole las cannon wound through onto the Wraith Knight, which put 7 damage on it because Mortarian's aura is cool. Just ripped half the damage off a Wraith Knight. It felt very good. I say half, like put it down to 11. And then my las cannon, my one Playburst Fall that got range double missed on a Fire Prism. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, because that would have been really nice to like half damage a Fire Prism there, because then I can fire all the indirect at it. Instead, all the indirect goes into and picks up a squad of War Spiders, which, fair enough, not too unhappy with that. That's most of his scoring off the board. He then goes first, proceeds to fire basically everything at the Land Raider. He fires one heavy Wraith Cannon, which does 12 damage to which does 10 damage to a Playburst Crawler, and then everything else goes into the Land Raider, and he finishes it off with the Night Spinner. Eldar do have a ton of rerolls, like they have a lot of way to get through, but popping Cloud of Flies on a Land Raider or armor or Cloud of Flies or the generic pop smoke stratagem on big things is vaguely okay for keeping them alive. You know, they're still hitting on forge rolling. Unfortunately, it never mattered. Every single Wraith Cannon shot hit every game into everything that was shot on forge rolling. They were just like, nope, all hit every time. It never came up once. But in theory, it would have been great. I know, right? So I'm now sat. I've just picked up a 12 primary going first into Eldar. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got the contents of my Land Raider, which died to the Night Spinner getting 2 6s on 4 shots to wound and killing it. I was heartbroken. It went down to 3 and then died to the Night Spinner. Otherwise, it would have been I would have ripped the soul out of a Wraith Knight that turn. It would have been great. So I set up. I charged like the Ranger squad. I just shoot it with like a billion flamers from the Foulblight spawns. I drive the 2 remaining Playburst Crawlers up towards the Fire Prism, fire 4 last cannon shots at it, miss all of them. Typhus drops in.
I love your luck so far.
Yep. Typhus drops in, rolls to go for the big damage onto the Wraith Knight, smites himself, takes D3 damage.
So wait, you won this game, right?
Yeah.
You won this game.
Yeah,
So we-
All I can say is
Why
it
I'm
sounds,
telling the story.
it sounds very much like your Typhus recognizes where Death Guard is at and is just kicking himself for being part of this.
He's like, oh no, this was going to be so cool. Why have I done this? So yeah, he drops in. I fire the 2 Plagueburst Crawlers into the Wraith Knight. They're in ignore damage reduction range. He can't get Fortune. I got lethal hits. One of them is AP2. No cover because the Lord of Virulence can see it. 1 shot and 2 shots, so 9 shots total. I think I did 2 damage to it. I was like, oh, this was gonna be so cool. The one crowning grace here is I do get my Lord of what's it called? Living Plague, Lord of Chaos into his like home objective area, which is now turned to. He now has a 9-inch aura of on a 4+. Every unit within 9 inch, any unit within 9 inches rolled per unit takes D3 mortal wounds. And I get a couple of wounds on the Wraith Knight, I get a couple of wounds on the Way Leaper, I get a couple of wounds on the Night Spinner. I just get a couple of wounds here and there. And then that guy proceeds to not die because my opponent at this point has an Orphic Way Leaper, 2 Wraith Knights, 2 Fire Prisms left, and then a squad of Shadow Spectres in my deployment zone. And that is all is on the board. And that is, it turns out, not a ton of activations. So he spends the next turn shooting Mortarian, who decides that the only damage he wants to take is from mortal wounds and nothing else, and just lives. And we're like, okay, cool, we're playing. I have 2 squads of Nurglings that deployed 9 inches from his deployment zone at this point that are still in his deployment zone because he has not been able to shoot them yet. And they're just like chain charging Fire Prisms, or it's just like, this is great. One of them like dies in combat to a Wraith Knight. Typhus gets charged by the Wraith Knight with the sword and gets executed. It was very sad. I would have loved him to pass all his saves and get to do some damage back. Wouldn't have helped. Mortarian then proceeds to charge a Wraith Knight and goes, all right, you've got a 5 showing on your fate dice because you've used all your 6 at this point. 1 CP for inexorable, that's +1 AP. 1 CP for sustained hits. And I pop 5 wounds, 5 hits, 5 wounds, fails 4 of the saves. That's flatline, 16 damage, taken 2 damage already, dead Wraith Knight. And now we're like, okay, cool, we're playing. There's still a Wraith Knight on his home objective. There's still a Fire Prism left. And Mortarian tanks it again for the second turn in a row, and then the Lord of Plagues aura goes off on that Wraith Knight and drops it to 4 health. And then Mortarion shoots it to death with the D6 plus 3 shots with dev wounds.
With the lantern?
No, with the other one, the like Plague Wind or whatever it's called. D6 plus 3,
the psychic
D6 plus
weapon,
3
yeah.
shots, 7, 2, 1 dev wounds. 3 96s, 1 reroll, turns it into a 6. Nukes the Wraith Knight.
Man,
That
this
feels
luck
good.
swing in the other direction is real
know.
good. That's real
It
solid.
was phenomenal. It was so funny. This Lord of Contagion is our Lord of Virulent or Chaos Sword is just on my opponent's home objective on 1 wound. It's been on 1 wound for 2 turns. It's been shot by the Autarch Whale Leaper and like a Shuriken Cannon for 2 turns. And it's just like it doesn't have anything to shoot it with. There's like 3 foul blight spawns sitting like Warp Spiders aren't coming over here because they don't want to walk into that Overwatch. And he's now sat on my home objective with like 5 Warp Spiders and 5 Shadow Specters. Plagueburst Caller like drives back there to go and try and tank shock them off it. Manages to do 1 damage on tank shock and flip and contest the objective for a turn at least. So I ended up winning this game 12-8 because I still didn't score any fucking secondaries.
Clearly, you should have just taken behind enemy lines. The Nurglings could have just sat there all day.
They ended up, yeah, probably. I mean, they ended up scoring me like Area Denial and Extend Balance. I had a good early draw and then a pretty terrible like back end draw. I think my turn 4 and 5 cards, I never drew a card I could score. And my opponent drew like Capture Enemy Outpost on 5 while sat on my home objective and just flipped it from like a 15 to a 12. But I'm gonna be honest, I was happy with the 12. So the takeaway from that game is you kind of got to just play to your outs. I had 2 CP every turn. I command reroll the save on Mortarion, and I popped stealth on Mortarion. Every turn, all I did was just those 2 CP, keep him alive, unless I had an extra one from discarding cards. And it worked out. I would not call that a reliable game plan. I would not call it one that I would be eager to try and repeat. But it did work on the day.
And then you played Eldar again.
Yeah, then I put up the next round pairings, and I'm playing functionally Brian's WTC list that swapped out like something. It swapped out like 1, or no, it wasn't. It was double Fire Prism, 20 Wraithguard with Spirit Seers, a Wraith Lord, a Wraith Knight, and then like 10 Guardians with a Farseer. And that was it. It didn't have a Whale Leaper. It didn't have any. Oh, I had 1 support battery. And it's just stuff. There is so few activations in this list, which, you know, my list is built around denying you if you don't have great activations. Now, I think my opponent lost this game more than I won it. He deployed very defensively with his Wraith Knight, and I was able to functionally hide everything, and I put Mortarion in Deep Strike because this had a central objective, and the Wraith Knight is fairly scary. But my opponent left his Wraith Knight in his deployment zone until functionally turn 5, and this was the Ritual, and he just didn't have any units to make objectives with. So I played Heads Down, Thumbs Up. I took Cleanse and Teleport Homers, and I made 3 objectives in a line across my Crucible of Battle deployment zone, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, with Sticky Objective holding the one in the center, and then a squad of Poxwalkers hidden, cleansing the top 2, just slamming the button, cleanse, 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 and then in the middle, Nurglings jump on the middle, deploy Teleport Homer. Next turn, the other Nurglings deploy Teleport Homer. Next turn, a Plagueburst Crawler deploys Teleport Homer. Next turn, the Nurgling that didn't battle shock this turn deploys Teleport Homer, and then a Foul Blight, and then Typhus deploys the Teleport Homer. It's just like, cool, that's 15 on deploy Teleport Homers and 14 on Cleanse. My opponent's got Bring It Down and Assassinate because most people did that to me, and I just held him off primary. I went first in this. I went second in this one. He walked forward, didn't have any unit that could do the action on turn 1 because he had deployed Hidden for me, so he couldn't get anything into position to summon an objective except a Wraith Knight or a Fire Prism, and he didn't want to put them in the open, so he decided not to make an objective and just tried to play for the late game. And then on turn 2, I managed to hold him to a 0. He got like a 5 because he phantasmed into the middle, and then I held him to a 0 the next turn because I had like Mortarion in combat in the middle, like Epic challenged out the Spirit Seer to get him rid of his -1 to hit, so that I could keep charging with the Nurglings, and he'd hit the Nurglings on 5s, and I could maybe live. And then just did the same thing. Typhus charged the other one. Epic challenged out the Spirit Seer so that anything that's dead stays dead, and he can't flip primary during the command phase. He's got to like be honest. If he's taking damage, he's taking damage. Eventually, he gets into the middle, gets the primary. He's, you know, I ended up the game with 2 Plagueburst Crawlers left alive. He maxed Assassinate on turn 2. We don't talk about that. I think turn 3, sorry, because he went first. And yeah, Heads Down, Thumbs Up, 13-7 win. I won by like 16 points because I just scored 45 primary because I was on 3 objectives the entire game and he was on 1 for most of it. I killed no Wraithguard through shooting. Mortarion barely killed any in combat. He killed like the Spirit Seer and 2 dudes, and then the other 3 Chaos Lords killed like 1 more between them. That squad ended the game with like 3 guys alive. The other one lost its Spirit Seer and nothing else. The Wraith Knight was on full health, and it didn't matter. So again, I think I got lucky with the mission in this one.
It really sounds like you held down an adult with like 50 kindergartners and then hope for the best.
Minor casualties.
Just minor casualties.
I was just shivering him in the leg until he fell, and he was like, "What's shivering me in the leg?" And by the time he realized I had like absconded with his wallet, it's kind of what it felt like. It's like if that game goes another turn, I'm just tabled, but. We play 5 turns.
It only goes for 5 turns.
You only need 5 rounds.
Typhus was absolutely the MVP in this one, though. He dropped in, ripped chunks out of the Wraith Lord to finish it off, or was going to rip chunks out of the Wraith Lord to finish it off, but the entropy cannons got there, so he got to nuke out like 2 extra Wraith Guard. The Lord of Virulence auras just slamming on 2 Wraith Guard squads a turn, just picking up 2. That's why I like epic challenge at the characters, just to keep that repetitive damage, just to keep dropping his OC in that area. And it just about worked out. Poxwalkers, all they did was they scored me, I think I scored like 85 points that game. The Poxwalkers conservatively scored me 70 of them. But nothing that could shoot them. They were just sat in a corner. But yeah, real MVP has got to be the guy has got to be getting to Rapid Ingress Mortarion out of line of sight of a Wraithguard squad, in charge range of both of them, and out of range of the Wraith Knight. That was the real. Oh, this point on the board shouldn't exist right now, and that was the one that I think helped the most. I think I'd have been okay without it, but it definitely gave me a lot of leeway on the game. Now, for all of his sins in the first Eldar game, this game Mortarion died to the first shot from the Wraith Knight. Was 66 mortal wounds, picked him up. Just like, oh, okay, cool, right, okay. So that's what can happen here. It turns out
does feel fairly realistic.
Scamming is still scamming. I mean, he was still hitting on 4s. He got 4 shots into 4 hits. I'm like, come on, man.
Into 3 6s.
Did he not have a Skyrunner? I was just curious.
No, he had the guide.
I just assumed,
and that was it.
I just assumed that he had a Skyrunner for some reason. That feels less likely than that feels more likely.
It was the second time in a row that somebody had gone 4 shots, 4 hits on 4s with 1 reroll into Mortarion. And I'm like, it's just as likely that you get 1 hit, guys. Come on.
Yes.
I mean, you just need to play like 20 more games and then it'll average out, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
100%.
Let me just go and schedule in another 20 games with Death Guard. I 100% promise you that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm
sure that Brian will take you up with his Eldari.
Yeah. He definitely wants that ego boost for beating you with Death Guard 5.
No. We're continuing the whole thing. Brian has never won a Scottish GT in which he beat me. So that's what we're clinging to. He's never beaten me on the way to a tournament win. So I gotta continue that. If he gets it now when I'm doing it with Death Guard, it doesn't count either, because he'll not take that. So that's what I'm running with. That's all I got left.
Nice.
Brian has lost 1 tournament game of 10th edition so far. Total. I don't feel like I'm going to be the one to break that anytime soon. So
why don't we talk about stats then now, where we can talk about more about how nobody loses games.
If anybody wants, I'll do one more thing. If anybody wants a little more about the Death Guard stuff, I'm going on the Disgusting and Resilient podcast tomorrow, so that'll be out at some point. And I've just done a Goonhammer article as well. You can find that on goonhammer.com. It's called like Innes Wilson at Clan Wars Scottish Open or something like that. Community I will say my favorite thing about it has been the community response. I get tagged constantly in Discord, like talking with people talking about Death Guard now, people looking at the list, people trying to talk about the Discord channel in Team Scotland or in the StatCheck server is like the most active it's been since we made the channel. I think there were like 15 messages in it total, and there's now like a couple, like 100 a day. So big love to the Death Guard people, even if the army is abjectly terrible.
I don't know. I just love the concept that I was kind of introduced to of just activation locking people with that army. It's just something I hadn't really considered. It's something you think about just like not as a technique, I think, as a more novice player. And
definitely
like something you can design a list around is kind of interesting.
Playing with and around Brian a ton, it's one of his favorite concepts in 40k. He's definitely the person that introduced me to it as like I kind of knew about it before, but Brian is definitely the one that codified it for me. And it was a big way of the way he played his orc list that was doing really well at the end of 9th edition. And it's definitely something that you saw someone like Lucas on the TNG podcast talking about for his WTC list for orcs as well. So it's definitely a concept that applies to other people. You usually see it more in the concept in the space of transports, but lots of single small units, but like single model units where just like there's no such thing as overkill damage is definitely an interesting place to apply as well.
That's cool.
Right.
All
stats.
right.
Let's do it.
As I told Jeremy, the stats are much like my tea, kind of microwaved, which offends only people who drink tea regularly and nobody else.
You should offend everybody.
I'm sure that Taos will come out of the freaking woodwork and ask why I did that, but that's neither here nor there. The stats are terrible, and I don't want to talk about them, but we're going to talk about them anyways. And then Jeremy has some interesting stuff that he did that he's going to talk about a little bit later. But just because people always ask for it, this last week's stats were awful. Eldar are currently still in first place. They won 66.3% of their games. They won 7 out of like 12 events this weekend, I believe. Maybe 13. It might be 13. It's 13. 7 out of 13 events, 23 top 4s, 45 top 10s for a 3.11 over rep. They have like half of the top 4s. It's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, so that's that. They have a 14.2% for meta representation. So yeah, they have like a 46% of all the top 4s from last weekend. Necrons were in second by win rate. They had 8.8% meta representation, a 55.9% win rate. They won an event. They had 4 top 4s, 8 top 10s for a 0.87 for overrep. Custodians were in third, 7.8% of the meta, 55.5% win rate, 1 event win, 4 top 4s, 13 top 10s for essentially a 1 for overrep. Gene Stealer Cult were in fourth, 4.1% of the meta, a 54.9% win rate, no event wins, 2 top 4s, 8 top 10s, and a 0.95 overrep. So, perfectly balanced. And then Thousand Suns run out the top 5 with a 5.7 meta representation, a 52.9% win rate, an event win, 5 top 4s, and 13 top 10s for a 1.68 overrep. The other event winners were, let me pull them up real quick. Death Watch, Imperial Knights, and Chaos Space Marines.
Well done to all 3 of them for the other 57 events that they weren't at.
Actually, just 6 factions won each one event. So 6 other factions won 1 event each to make up the other 6 things that Eldar did not win. Yeah, so that's cool. At the bottom for this week, we have Space Marines, generic Space Marines.
Always happens when this is super major because so many people come out the woodwork playing Space Marines. So I'm not surprised.
Fair, it's been happening for a while now.
I know, but it's always worst on super major weekends, right?
Correct.
So just pure Space Marines, not the various Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and stuff that we usually sum together to make them have meta representation that actually makes sense. Had 4.9% of the meta, a 31% win rate. They got no top 4s, no event wins, and 1 top 10 for a 0 for overrep.
Hell yeah.
Sisters, second to last, 1.7% of the meta, a 36.8% win rate, 2 top 10s, also a 0 for overrep. Then Tau, third to last, 3.2%, a 37.6% win rate, 1 top 10 for a 0. Drukhari, fourth from the bottom, 1.3% meta representation, so almost not even worth counting anymore. 37.8% win rate and no placements of any kind. And then Grey Knights round out the bottom, 20 players, 2% meta representation, a 38.6% win rate, and also no placements of any kind. I think
So
by himself in his carry,
got dragged out of the bottom 5.
I think by dint of you playing them, because there are only 17 players.
One of the Goonhammer guys, Bear, played them for 3-3 at the Goonhammer Open as well. That I know of. I've been speaking to him a little bit about his run. So, hey,
so the two of you make up 20% of the wins this weekend.
Yes. The two of you by yourselves. Good job.
Don't say it like that.
I mean, yeah, there were only 34 wins this weekend for Death Guard. And you two had 6 wins between the two of you.
And that was out of what, 17 players?
17 players.
Out of 17 players. Adeptus Mechanicus and Leagues of Votann have dropped below the player threshold where I start talking about their stats, actually.
So how many players did we have this weekend? Just for context, we usually look at any faction that has 10 or more players. How many players did we have total this weekend?
If my mouse would start working,
It's like
then I would tell
1,012,
you.
right?
Was 1,012 players. So that means that AdMech and Votann have slipped below 1% of active players. 10 out of 1,000, 1%.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. Them and World Eaters, I think, are the only factions who have slipped below the 10 total players. World Eaters, the 9 players actually did somewhat respectably and got 44% of a win rate, which is doing all right.
Better than Blood Angels.
They did better than Blood Angels, Astra Militarum, Space Wolves, Death Guard, Adeptus Mechanicus, Leagues of Votann, Grey Knights, Drakari, Tau, Sisters, and Space Marines. I mean, Eldar have continued their thing of winning more top 4ing and winning more events than like most of the field just has wins for games. So yeah. How's
Eldar doing on the event win rate versus faction win rate?
So Eldar won 7 out of 13, which is over 50.
I mean, they're now
which is
up
54% win rate.
They won more than all but 3 factions,
which
for event wins. So they won more than everybody except Gene Stealer Cult, Adeptus Custodes, and Necrons by event win rate. Just putting it out there. So that's why the emotional support cam is on again today, is because the meta is hot molten lead, and it is definitely
if the balance data slate's not great, we're gonna have Fergus in the doorway next week.
Yeah. I will mount a bed to the wall for Logan and Abigail, and I will just put the camera on them.
Sounds good.
The other reason that the emotional support cat is out is that I had to read 144 Eldari lists this weekend.
Yeah, that's too many Eldari lists. You also had to read 17 Death Guard lists, which I'm pretty sure is just as bad. But
at least they were unique.
What was the most interesting other Death Guard list you saw?
I don't know. I don't really commit those ones to memory.
I need to know what my competition's looking like.
I mean, yours was definitely the most unique because it just caused everyone to flame you for it.
And then did the best of most of the Death Guard lists for the weekend. So there you go.
I'm not saying I'm the savior of an entire faction, but
the emotional support cat is trying to hide under the monitor. So I think has had enough of our weekly stats chat. Jeremy, we wanted to pull up some event participation and completion stats, right?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to pull this up. Now this is something that's actually kind of cool. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Nice.
Someone remind me to stop sharing my screen when I'm done with this.
No,
because I'm terrible with that. So I have been taking as much data as I can find, not just the stuff that I started collecting in February of 2022, but I've also been looking back at what was previously presented in early 9th edition by Peter at 40kstats.com, grabbing as much as I can and shoving it all together. This is just looking at mice data, but it kind of is interesting. So there's 2 lines on this graph. This is from February of 2022 until today, basically. And it kind of shows the weekly trends for how many players are showing up at events. And it's, more or less trending upwards. It's, chaotic
very
as all
slightly,
hell, but
yes,
it's very slightly trending upwards. But the interesting one, so that's the blue line. Blue line is event attendance. So you can see this was the moment when I lost my all sensibility, was LGT last year, where there were 1,356 players in a single weekend. And I just, decided that moment that I started to question my life choices a little bit. But the more interesting thing is looking at the percentage of players that complete events. Now, I'm going to add one caveat to this. I have fudged this data slightly. And that's because super majors have a very interesting trend that I noticed. And that is if it is a 3-day event, you have about the same number of people that will play the full 2 days as a typical event, and then a massive drop-off in the number of people that will play that 3rd day. We saw it at Nova this weekend. We saw it at Nova last year. We saw it
significantly.
We saw it at Warhammer Fest. We saw it at Tacoma. We saw it less at Kansas City because it was only 100 players to begin with, but it's one of these things where like you will see anywhere from a third to almost a half of the players just stop playing after day 2. But you'll see like 95% of them play the first 2 days. So I basically looked at just the first 2 days of events when I was looking at this, because of that trend towards the drop rate. But this is basically looking at, as time has gone on over the last, 18 months, 19 months that we've been tracking data, how has, the ratio of people who start an event to those that finish the event, or at least play through 2 full days of a 3-day super major. And it's stayed remarkably consistent, between 80% on the low end and about 95% on the high end. Every now and then you have, exceptions where someone will actually play all of their games. And in this case, that was 653 people. Every single person finished their event.
Is that not like the week that has like 50 people?
Oh no, sorry, that's maybe that is this one down here.
Yeah, that's like this.
Oh yeah, this is New Year's. Yeah, this is the one that had 32 people. So it was just a fun event. Never mind. This is what happens when I don't look at graphs carefully. But yeah, like even on weekends where there are a ton of players, like for example, LGT last year, the 2nd of October, 91% of people finished their events. So that was, out of 1,356 players, that many people actually finished the event, or at least played through the first full 2 days. I can't remember what the game spread at LGT was, but I think it was
just 3-2.
Okay, it was just 3-2. Right, because then there was the top cut.
Yep.
So that many people played through. Similarly, because we were looking at it, we were wondering, because this is a question that's come up a lot for the last couple of months, is meta scuffed. Win rates are all over the place. There's a very big, what's the best word to put it? Not delineation. Word will come to me. Stratification in the meta, where you can see like the who has and who doesn't have. But despite that, like we looked at Nova last year and Nova this year. Nova this year, actually, Ben, I do have unique player registrations. It's not in here because I haven't updated it recently, but I can actually show you that later if you want. But one of the things that we looked at was Nova last year versus Nova this year. Nova last year was Nephilim. It was one of the best metas that we've seen since we started looking at data. And then Nova this year was, well, the dumpster fire. Not the event, but the meta. And
Good
Nova this year, yeah. Plenty of people who are in our Discord went to Nova and did enjoy themselves from at the very least the interactions of the event. But yeah, so one of the big things that we were noticing that is like Nova had, I think it was 270 people last year, and they had 325 this year. So the event has grown by 20% year over year, but more people proportionally finished the full 2 days, and more people proportionally finished the 3 days. Nova has traditionally had this kind of drop day at the end, which is where people will just not play the Sunday. Last year it was 3 rounds on the Sunday. This year it was 2 rounds on the Sunday. Either way, it's you saw a pretty big drop off. That drop off was smaller this year than last year, which means that more people are playing it through. So I need to look at.
I wonder how much it's self-selecting that if you're willing to go to an event in this meta, you're probably slightly more likely to stick it out.
Which is one of the things that we were talking about after I looked at this was just like, well, it kind of makes sense if you're paying the money to go to an event, either traveling or even just getting an army ready and paying the registration fee. It makes a really big deal that you know what you're getting into. There's very few people who show up to a super major not knowing what the meta looks like, and so you are, as Ina said, self-selecting, and you're more likely to play it out because, well, you're a sucker for punishment, or maybe you play Eldari.
Increasingly likely on that Eldari front.
Yeah. That the rate it's going, Eldari might pass Combined Space Marines. And Combined Space Marines are higher than they were the last time that we saw that happen, which was in February of 2022 when Custodes briefly surpassed them. And that was at the 12% mark.
Yeah, they're like 16% right now.
Space Marines are 16% combined. This weekend, they fluctuate a little bit in there, but Eldari were 14% this weekend, which is
And they've been basically going up the whole time, which is intriguing.
And they've been eating away at everyone else's representation fairly equally.
And kind of slowly devouring all of the overrep. Like, as you saw this last week, the overrep definitely has condensed even further.
Yeah, but just as an example, this is what... this is actually probably the best one. Let's bring this to the front. I have, as you can see, I have been futzing around with this data a lot. But this is what 2021, 2022, and 2023 have looked at. This gap here is because I'm missing the month of June from 2023 because that was when we stopped caring about 9th edition stats. But like the trend lines are fairly consistent in terms of like number of players that are showing up every single month. So we'll see if this continues. I think we've kind of set it to death at this point, but if the data slate is impactful enough, if the data slate gives us what we need to restore some level of balance to the meta, then we'll see this continue to grow. If we don't, we might start seeing player attendance drop off, which is, kind of scary for tournament organizers and also competitive players as a whole, because if you are in on this, you want to have as many people at your events as possible. You want to be playing good games. You want to be having fun.
And one of the things to take into account when you're looking at this data is that we select out large travel events, basically. So the people who are going to these events, like you mentioned before, are spending lots of money on hotel and flights and stuff and are more likely to just finish. I think at some point it'd be interesting, although almost impossible to do, would be to look at RTT data as well. Because it's way easier to just be like, you know what, I don't want to finish this RTT and just leave.
Yeah.
But that's more of an interest to me to see if it's just people will definitely be like, I spent $1,000 on this trip. I'm gonna finish it. Although some of the people on our Discord definitely dropped and went and explored on their third day, basically.
Yep. And like I mentioned, that's actually really common with Nova. Mm-hmm. Less common is the people that drop after day one.
Yeah.
And we didn't see a tick up in this Nova, but again, like we were saying, people kind of already knew what they were getting themselves into.
There's definitely an aspect of the event size for Nova hasn't increased humongously, has it, since last year's event?
Yeah, only about 20%, which is
not
reasonably substantial, but in the grand scheme of things isn't huge.
We might just be seeing events that are sold out, just kind of filling those gaps with people who were interested in going in previous years as well. Yeah, be interesting to see if event saturation is a thing that we might be exploring from an attendance perspective.
It definitely is having an impact. I point to Capital City Bloodbath as a really good example of that. This has been for many years known as Ottawa's premier 40K event. Last year we had 122 players. This year we had 84.
Mm-hmm.
Innis, I think the Scottish.
We dropped from 56 to 34.
That's a pretty substantial drop. And so
it's also a different time of year. It was May, it was end of an edition versus start of an edition and things like that. Or it's a May event versus September event. So it's not one-to-one correlation, right? But
yeah. So some events are seeing increases, some events are seeing decreases. Like a good example, again, Seattle Open a year ago versus Tacoma Open this year, ostensibly the exact same location and same time of year. And Tacoma was huge compared to Seattle. So there's also the, at what point do you hit event cap and then you make more room for space? Because I know that from what I've seen, the US events team have been able to do much larger events this year than they did last year because they just have more resources available to them.
Yeah.
So when I say people knowing about the meta, I think the argument is that people last year went to event where, we're right now, because of the state the game is in, it's a little more, if you are a person who's willing to go to a tournament, given the current state of balance, you are probably already expecting it to be kind of crap, which is why we're maybe not seeing event drop numbers change as much as people might were expecting, maybe would expect them to. If you are already I'm going to go to a tournament, I know how Eldar are, and you play against Eldar, you're probably going to be yeah, whatever, fine, I knew this was a risk when I came into it, versus, last year where it's just, a fairly stable meta. So it's probably why the drop rate hasn't changed a ton, would be my immediate guess. Maybe that's not completely accurate, but I definitely personally think it's fairly close to something that could be affecting that.
There's also probably some lag, right? Because some people, you have to plan travel like pretty far in advance in a lot of situations in order to
Yeah,
like
also
get good
true.
prices on plane tickets and hotels and stuff. So there might be some inertia in event attendance drop off as well.
For sure.
But we'll find out. I think we'll have this special episode on Thursday. We'll be able to talk about what we think of the quality of the data slate at that point, and we'll kind of be able to see, like, if it's good, maybe that'll be great. Like, we'll be really excited. I remain cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
Agreed.
I
Shall we move on to some show questions?
am too cautiously optimistic. Especially. Yeah, let's do that.
Do you want to do plugs and then move into show questions?
Yeah, let's do plugs.
Yes.
A few things for you guys this week. Yeah, we got a few announcements. So first stuff, thank you everybody for being with us for the 59th episode of Stat Check. We really appreciate you guys all being here. If you're not watching the show live, you can do that at youtube.com/c/statcheck. 11 p.m. every 11 p.m. UK time, 6 p.m. EST every Tuesday. We're live doing this. Clearly, you guys are enjoying it because you keep coming back, which we really appreciate. If you're in a position to, we'd love if you could check out the Patreon as well. It's patreon.com/statcheck, where you can get access to basically all the stuff that we do in a slightly more easy format. Basically, it's just us talking back and forth. If you want to interact with us, see my weird death grid list before they go live, all that kind of thing, please do check that out. It's a great community, and we're really proud of it. A couple other things, our sponsors, Red Dragon is our sort of primary merch sponsor. That's red-dragon.ca. If you're a Discord member, you get 15% off there. Otherwise, you can check them out for things like our dice and objective markers and all that sort of thing. And Saltar Games is our Etsy store provider. They do tokens and all that sort of thing. They've just come back from a 2-week hiatus, so they'll be shipping and making orders again now. So if you check that out, it's just Saltar Games on Etsy. Other stuff, End of the Matrix and XM1 are both variably doing shows as and when. I believe this week is End of the Matrix's turn. I'm going to lose track of that very significantly, though. XM1 did a Nova show. I would expect to do back next week with Tim covering how his Nova experience went. And End of the Matrix will be doing something extra. They did just release an incredibly awesome piece of content on YouTube, which was Pumbaa from Team Poland and John Lennon from Team America running through the pairings process for Poland versus USA. So if that's something that at all interests you, I would highly recommend checking that out. It is one of the best pieces of 4K content I've ever watched. The back and forth between those guys and the decision making and what they're doing during what they're thinking about during that process was really interesting for me as somebody who's really invested in that. And I would imagine it would be really interesting to somebody who's kind of just interested in learning about that, seeing all the dynamics behind the scenes on the team process in one of the highest level 40K matches that's ever been played. Other stuff. Stat-check.com/coaching. Myself and Typhus both offer coaching through there, so please do check that out if that's something you're interested in. We're both available to help you with basically anything you're looking for in 4K, whether you're a beginner, whether you are a tournament veteran looking to get better, whether you're wanting to learn Death Guard or Sisters. Typhus has been looking at some really janky Sisters lists right now that I think are super cool and very interesting. We're both available and happy to help. So please do check that out. Stat-check.com/coaching. I will never get the dash in that place in the right place. It's for some reason a tongue twister for me. Lastly, if you are going to be at the Cali Cup or near the Cali Cup, which is on the 4th and 5th. Oh, I'm going to look this up because I really should have written this down.
It's like the first weekend of November.
Yeah, but I'm going to look it up properly because otherwise I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to do it badly. So we as StatCheck are going to be at the California Cup, which is CaliforniaCup40k.com from the 3rd to the 5th of November, which is in San Diego, California at somewhere 5035 Shoreline Street. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but that's where we're going to be. On the Thursday night before the event, Anthony and I are going to be running a masterclass workshop for intermediate level and beginner level. We'll be doing 2 classes. We're still working out the full details, but that'll all be going live. So we're going to be working with the Xenos Petting Zoo guys to provide that. So it'll be a live workshop for anybody who is at the tournament, anybody who's in the area. And we're going to hopefully try and record it, which we might be able to release as like a paid online thing down the line at some point. That's the goal. So yeah, we're going to be doing that, which means, and we're also 99% confident bringing Jeremy and Nathan out to come and do coverage at that event, where they'll be running a stats desk on the Xenos Petting Zoo stream for that event. So if you're going to be there and that's something that interests you, please do check it out. If you're going to be in the area and that's something that interests you on the Thursday night before the event, so that should be November the 2nd, we're going to be in San Diego. And if you are there at the event, come say hi, come see us at the stream, we'd love to meet you if you're a Static fan, if you just heard of us. Yeah, I think that's all I've got on that one. I don't think I have any other plugs. I don't think I've missed anything. And we're going to go on with the show questions.
Awesome.
It's
So I've got
really
the show
warm.
questions.
It's like 20 degrees in the UK still. I'm genuinely just like dying a little bit constantly at the moment. So
it was like 95 degrees Fahrenheit here, which is something in non-freedom units.
it's like 70 degrees here right now at like midnight. And I'm like, it doesn't normally get up to like, my comfortable range of temperature is like, and nothing above like 45 Fahrenheit is comfortable for me. So
it's 30. It was 35 Celsius today here in Chicago.
No, that's not okay. I am dying at it being like 20 Celsius here.
It is currently 31 Celsius and it feels like 42 because of the humidity.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
even know what our
inside
real
at
deal
midnight
is.
and I'm sweating and I don't like it.
I'm dripping in sweat right now because I had to turn off the air conditioners because I didn't want to have to edit it out. And it's how are you going to survive California? Because it'll be November.
It will be November, so it'll be a nice, chill 24 Celsius.
November and alcohol is the plan. I can. The thing is, though, I can deal with it when I'm abroad. I live in Scotland. I live further north than Jeremy does, and I don't like this.
You also have a warmer climate than me, but yes,
I know
you
I
do
do,
not
but
like
it's
this.
still no. This is holiday weather. I'm like dying.
All right, I'm going to start us in on questions while Innes melts along with Jeremy because
And
apparently
this is always
I'm the
a
one who
melt.
has
It's nothing to do with the temperature.
Logan in Discord asks, "How ready are you to be disappointed by the balanced data slate?"
12 out of 10. I genuinely, I'm just assuming that that affects nothing and that I still have to plan for Eldar, and anything less than that, I will be more than happy with. All I really want is the ability to rock up to a game against Eldar and know that if I'm better than my opponent, I can win the game. I don't care if they're as good as me. If they're as good as me and I can try and scam them, that's fine. But I want to know that if I'm a better player and I show up at the table, that I should win that game, assuming I've built an army that plays 40k. That's what I want.
Mhm.
That's all I really want.
I remain cautiously optimistic, as I mentioned before. Like, there's always the possibility that everything kind of goes, terrible. And we all go play Age of Sigmar instead or something. I don't know. Maybe we turn into a Starfield podcast for like a couple weeks while we all take a break from the real world of 40K.
And this doesn't really play video games, so that's not an option.
We'll just turn into a Marvel Snap podcast where Innes
I wouldn't
talks about
recommend
Marvel
that.
Snap.
There's like not that much content to that game. I would struggle.
And then the second question that Logan asks is the Swarm detachment viable enough to use in singles, or will it be more of a team detachment?
I'll let you know. I'm definitely going to test it.
I think it has legs for teams.
It's going to have
many
hundreds
of
of
them.
legs.
At least
do it.
they each have 6, right? So
They have 6
1,200 legs.
limbs, but I would call that
I don't know.
4. I would call that 2
They-
legs.
They run on 4, so I guess
Those will be legs.
800 legs.
Yeah,
Let's call
that's
it
fine.
8.
Look, I don't own enough gargoyles to play that list right now because the gargoyles are the money maker, but I'm definitely going to try some version of it.
Well-
The reason I will not be playing that in tournaments at all is because I'm not up basing 200 Termagants.
Just get the rings.
Yes.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
rings are like 50p per. I'm going to need like £100 worth of rings, and
Get on it,
I don't
Playboy.
want to do that.
Fun Innes is I'm going to play a horde at a GT.
I'm more likely to do that than play Votan. Let's go with that.
I mean, I'm excited to actually paint the 200 Termagants that I think I've got between Termagants and Ormagants. I'm excited to paint them and
I'm
have it
going
be
to buy
useful.
200 of the new ones eventually, right? I'm annoyed that they brought out the fucking extra sprue that I now need to buy as well. So I'm going to need to like source some of those online.
Let's be honest.
But-
To preserve clock, you were never going to fire the special weapon.
Yeah, but one of them gives the squad assault.
Oh,
which is
fair,
actually really important.
fair.
One of them is
That's
like
important.
A dev,
Yes.
one of them's like
Sorry.
a Dev Wounds Torrent Flamer. So it's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
It's 1 per 10 at least. So you only need to make like 2.
Yeah, I only need to buy like 30 of the kits. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Or, go on eBay and buy just that one thing.
That's what I'm going to do, but I don't want to have to do that. That's the point I'm making here.
So John from Discord asks, with how strong and not dominant Eldar have been, do you think that playing them has helped improve people's competitive records without improving their player skill or decision making, like say the end of 9th meta with Dark
Yes,
Angels or Iron
100%.
Hands?
There are a
I'm
lot
sure
of people who did not win anything who are winning lots of things now. And I'm sure they've gotten a little bit better at 40k because they are playing against better players. But it is not, but it's purely off the back of Eldar. I would expect to see a lot of people suddenly start losing a lot more once Eldar change. Not everybody, but a lot of people.
I mean, we saw it with Iron Hands in 8th. Like, it lifted up like a bunch of people who traditionally didn't do very well at tournaments. I'm sure Eldar are doing much the same thing.
Present company included. What?
I mean, that was Drukari. Thick City lifted me real high for that one GT that I
Thick
won.
City got you this podcast.
Yes, it did. It's true. You're not wrong. What do you think of orc players that yell "wah"?
Fuck them.
They are the worst human beings on the planet, and I think all of
Ban
them
him.
should be
Ban him from tournaments for life.
Oh my god! Wow, we got real violent there.
I had to sit through way too many tournaments when the wall was first introduced. Where
It's genuinely the worst thing they ever did was making that an ability you can use instead of just like an aura from a character.
Mm-hmm.
You're right,
It's my
Anthony,
least
I
favorite
do
thing in
have
all
you
of
to thank.
Farmville.
Probably my worst experience with that was playing on a stream game in an enclosed room that was about 2 feet larger than the table was, and my opponent going first and screaming it at the top of his lungs, and then tabling me because it was that orcs. And I was just sitting there with my ears ringing, going, I know what's happening, and I can't do anything about it.
I can't even see or hear what's going on because he's tabling.
John, a different John this time, that one guy John, says, how quickly will Australia's Eric Lutheris break the swarm detachment for NIDS? I assume he has already, and he just hasn't
Eric
told us.
will break it for exactly Eric and nobody else on the planet, so don't worry about it.
Typhus asks, where's the nearest Weatherspoons to LGT so we can do the awful idea of getting stuff ordered by trolls online?
We're going to need to travel for a spoons, but we can make it happen. I mean,
Are
like,
we gonna
I generally...
post it in our Discord?
Oh, for sure. We've done that before.
It was only slightly scuffed.
Anthony and I were drinking in Edinburgh on other people's dime. It was great.
I will definitely send you at least one drink from the United States. Definitely at least one.
What about a bowl of peas?
I'll do that. I'll send you a bowl of mushy peas.
A nice glass of milk.
I'll do that too. I'll send you both. It's funny because I know they're talking about
you. I like
but
that shit.
Pilk, oh my god. Will asks, how are GW going to fuck up bringing up poor performing factions?
Let's not.
Death Guard are going to get 75% points drops across the board. Mortarian's going to toughness at 20.
I think
every unit's getting a +3 to their feel no pain. So base 4 up and everything, minus 2 up.
You did too well this weekend. That's all been removed.
Shit. Fuck. Yeah, the characters are all epic heroes.
Everybody's going to blame Innis when they don't get buffs on Thursday.
Every single character in the Death Guard index is now an epic hero.
Oh, no more activation locking.
You're all wrong. This is secretly why I did it. I want to sell my Death Guard army, so I want it to be great for like a week.
You won't sell your Death Guard army.
No, I like it too much, which
Luke
is really problematic.
Asks, do you think any of the weaker NIDS detachments have potential to be counters to potential post-late top armies in either teams or just off meta picks? I assume that they mean like the two that people have been talking about as the weaker ones are the Harvester and the Crusher Stampede detachments.
I think Harvester is better than people are giving it credit for. The regeneration is cool. I just need to like actually see it written out of how it exactly works because I have a really poor grasp on it right now.
Yeah, I need to see the codex on Saturday when I pick it up from my local store. Because it does seem like Necron regeneration in Tyranids probably could be good. It's just like
it really depends on how well you can keep those harvester units safe to keep that regeneration going.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's what I said. I need to like really see like what
you need to see it on the table and be like, can I feasibly put this thing here so that this then grows out properly so that I can actually keep things? But
yeah exactly.
Adam Camilleri points out in chat, Harvester is legit good, but going to take some mastery to go the distance. And I think that's where we're sitting.
I think it might just be less raw powerful than Nexus and Invasion. Like Invasion definitely is all the tricks that I want, and it's where I want to start.
Invasion instead of Vanguard.
Vanguard Invasion is what it's called, right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's the Vanguard Invasion. It's the Vanguard Onslaught detachment that the units have the Vanguard Invasion keyword.
Yeah, not the Invasion Fleet.
That was what I was thinking about. Invasion Fleet. I was like, that's just the one we've got now. And
the Vanguard Invasion units. So like the Lictor detachment.
Meanwhile,
is
Crusher
the one that
is
I'm
actually just
straight
legitimately terrible, and you shouldn't play it.
If Admech end up being the best army in the game, it's going to be great.
Yeah, because they're not vehicles.
No, because you get to proc your +1 to hit on everything army-wide turn 1.
Oh, there you go. That's right. I forget about Rad sometimes. Richard Kilpatrick.
So did GW.
I know. Which Tyranid data sheet got the biggest glow up from the new detachments?
Rippers.
Yeah.
Definitely Rippers. Yeah, which is the funniest thing because you can take one of them.
Yep.
They
and sell them in ones, buddy.
Well, it's because they come in ones in Leviathan.
Yep.
They come in ones in just the terminal box as well.
I definitely prefer
the
Forge World model of that, where it actually looks like a swarm of them.
Well, I have 6 of those, so that's fine.
I'm just gonna steal them
back on the shelf. Anthony's poor Tyrannifex.
Tyrannifex
poor Tyrannifexes.
I bought Tyrannifexes just to be upset with myself. As far as like actual units, Deathleaper kind of didn't really see much of a glow up, but he is bigger and cooler now.
He's got +1 save. He's a 3-up save now.
Yeah.
Right. Here's a question that I have. Valentin's pointing out
I think the Flying Hive Tyrant is probably Flying Hive Tyrant and the Wing Turret Prime are the two that I'm the most interested in looking at with the changes, though.
Because they have Vanguard, right? Vanguard.
Just
keyword.
the Vanguard onslaught keyword opens up a ton of different dimension because the base turret book only has one source of access to advance and charge, and that's Formagaunts. And now having a ton more means that there's a bunch of new ways to play that codex that we just don't have right now that we'll need to get used to.
I will say that the Neurolictor and Adam Camilleri brought this up is probably one of the coolest new data sheets in that book, just because it's 60 damn points.
Not a glow up. The Neurolictor is
not a glow up. It's
just no damage, but it's cool.
It does nothing except score points.
Yep, and I like scoring points. So
every now and then it'll probably pop that +1 to wound on something near it or whatever, for fun.
Yeah, I mean the fact that you can just like sit and cover the fact that you can just sit and cover an objective like behind a wall, and like if you walk on this, there's a chance you battle shock is nice. Like it's not. It's annoying. It's maybe a little. It's like obnoxious. It's great. I can run 2 of them. So
Vanguard has a stratagem where lone operatives can be not shot outside 6 inches as well, right? That's the stratagem for that one. Okay.
Yeah, and you can give any of them lone op as well.
And I wasn't on. I think we've previewed the emissary stuff. The emissary seems cool.
Yeah, we've not really talked about the specific Nizzlies. I'm gonna wait until I'm gonna get like 5 games in with it between Friday and Sunday this week. So I'm kind of going to avoid putting too much into it until I've got a chance to get some games with it. But I'm really excited for the book. I'm definitely on the edge of being like, I'm happy with taking this to LGT, and it's going to depend a lot on the slate, obviously. But I could see myself being very happy with this codex going forward. So
I'm so excited to paint Tyranids. So excited.
Me too, but I really need to figure out how to varnish models because I've never done it before, and it's really bugging me because all my turret models keep rubbing off the carapace. So I'm going to try and figure that out before I kill myself over playing Nids.
The only thing I'm sad about is that my metal biovores, I need to put them on an 80mm base because the new biovores are on 80s.
And
I need to show how dumb they look. I'm just going to look at my opponent and be like, look, yes, they're derpy.
Which version of metal biovores do you have? Do you have the modern one or the pre-modern ones?
The ones that looks like it's throwing sport mines.
No. So are they the really tiny ones or the really really tiny ones? Because there's the current metal biovores, the ones that they stopped selling a year ago because they ran out of stock, or the ones from before that.
Let me see. I need to. Man,
because I have the ones from before the ones that are the current ones, and they are the size of my thumb. And I've been getting away with it for a while, and I'm inclined to think I'm not going to get to do that anymore. But
they look real dumb on the 60mm bases or whatever they're on right now.
Okay, then
you
have
real dumb on
them. Not the current ones, because the current ones look fine on 60s. But
yeah, I do want to find some of the really old second
talking about pictures that nobody can see.
Never.
The ones that look like orc models. Yeah, those are pretty good.
Yeah. So where are we?
Where Martine? You butcher his name
Martine.
like that. Jesus.
No, Martine. Martine. Should I apply for Dutch teams with their new charter?
What is the new charter?
Yeah, we'd have to get details about what the new charter is. So this is a question we can't answer.
Come back to that question in a minute. I'm going to go look it up.
Cool.
No, you shouldn't, because Rude is on that team, and Rude is terrible. So
Rude is amazing. He has the best training. He has the best training process that I love so much.
I don't like it at all, but that's fine.
I know you don't, but I think it's amusing.
It's amusing, but it's not how I would like it. Yeah,
I didn't say it was good. I just like it. Dan F says the over-under on lower factions actually receiving buffs from the slate. I think it's likely that
they've said it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, They even said Votan are getting like more firepower and something else out of it. What that means, we don't know.
I'm really hoping they don't buff my Votan and my Death Guard enough. And like, I have Votan, Admech, and Death Guard and Grey Knights all sat in the garage, and I really can't deal with all of them being good because I do not, frankly, cannot afford to update all of them and turrets at the same time. Like, it's just not on the cards. So I would like it if at least a couple of them could stay unplayable, just for my sanity.
Yeah, I was looking at Oliver Johnson's list from this past weekend where he went 6-2 with current Votan, and I was like, if you get like 15 to 20% point drops and all that, this could actually be really fun.
Jordan T asks, what are your predictions for Space Marine Codex detachments?
I mean, they've already said there'll be an Iron
I think he means
Hand
like
style.
what the content of them is, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Iron Hand's gun, Ultramarines, mixed disciplines.
Iron Hands is vehicles, not gun, right? But
sure. What is Imperial Fist then? Anti-vehicle?
Yeah,
I would expect Imperial Fist to be, like,
bolters.
bolter stuff, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to tell because so many of the factions have like weird different faction diversity, and there's a lot of different ways you can take like a bike detachment. Like, do you make bikes faster? Do you make them more resilient? Do you do pre-game move? Do you do jinx saves? Right? Like, there's loads of ways you can approach it, and it's really hard to be very specific with what each one will be.
Yeah, and they've also shown, and this is something that I found very interesting, is that they can buff specific units within the codex only, but do it differently across different detachments, like they've done with the Tyranid book. So they could do a very similar approach where you can be like, these Imperial Fist anti-building the true powerhouses of 10. Yes, thank you, Adam Camilleri, for that that lovely insight.
Oh yeah, they need it.
They can turn ruins off. There you go.
Ooh. They could just remove ruins from the table.
All Imperial Fist units have powering when attacking vehicles.
No, they just pretend that obscuring doesn't exist. They ignore the obscuring rule.
There is no obscuring rule. It's a ruins rule now.
I know the ruins rule. They just ignore it.
All Imperial Fist units have line of sight to you at all times.
Yes.
It's like the rule that I always think Angron should have. The Angron is always eligible to declare a charge.
No matter what. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Eric asks, if you had to guess one army, do you think David Gaylord will be playing after the balance slate? These are getting creative.
Something that doesn't have backpacks.
Like, so, fuck you. Poor David.
You got there before. I'm pretty sure that like David is not going to see the end of this for like a solid 6 months.
I mean, he'll win an event and then we'll forget about it.
No, we won't. I'm never letting you.
Oh no, because we're going to make sure that we hand him a trophy that has a backpack on it.
I think we're going to just make sure that everybody eligible gives him a backpack. Like, just
from a random faction.
Just give him backpacks. Just show up to him. Just give him a backpack. Just like, hey, I think this is yours. We'll see if we can get enough for all your death watch.
Poor David. Absolutely amazing,
I would
man.
guess that David would be playing. Based on what's good right now, I would probably say either Turners or Thousand Suns.
I would say
those are both factions he's got a lot of history with.
Yeah. Thousand Suns seems kind of in the cards, depending on if they get nerfs or catch any hands from the balanced data slate, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're both fairly in his wheelhouse. So
Ben McJurick, I assume. Although his avatar is so confusing in our Discord. His avatar is like him as Gaskell, but it's Autarch Ben next to it.
I changed it. He was Warboss Ben. I changed him to
Autarch
Ben.
I see. I was so confused by that. What is your next tattoo idea or concept, if not sure?
Well, I lost a bet, so I have to get the Team America tattoo. But that's not allowed to be the first one that I get per my wife, so it's probably going to be a caricature of our cats.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, and then Team America in as discreet a spot as possible.
Then there's plenty of options for that.
Yeah,
just get it on an ass cheek, and then you just have America's ass. Congratulations.
Yeah, I can sit on America every single day.
There you go.
I don't know why so many people took Anthony up on that tattoo bet.
It was easy. It was easier to convince people to do it than you thought. Like, you literally just had to call them basically cowards, and they went and did it.
Well, for me, it was more that
guys, it's okay to be a coward when the bet is like so stacked against you.
My bet was more reasonable, and then
you bet on Francois, which was just a mistake.
I bet on Death was the mistake.
You bet on them through Francois, and that was the dangerous bet.
My artist bitched about the amount of lines in the current logo 2.5 hours for
oh my gosh
45 minutes for Scotland. God damn it, I didn't need to hear that, Ben.
This though is the best one.
Nats can't get
heaven anymore.
Oh
Nas.
Nas already
So-
couldn't get into heaven. Let's be honest. I've seen the way he
Alright.
acts at tournaments, but
He plays
Innes, are
Iron
you going to
Hands.
get a tattoo? If you were going to get a tattoo, what would it be?
don't have any tattoos at the moment. I would probably get. I have like a wooden like sign cut out of the Gene Circuit logo that I would probably get at some point. I would
Good one.
definitely at some point probably get an updated version of the Team Scotland logo that's a little more high fidelity. Ben, your tulip is a little low res. I don't know. I would consider. I've always said that if we top 3 again, I'll get whatever army I play as the logo or their logo on me because I'm not getting the Iron Warriors one on me, which is what I did it the last time with. So
Mhm. I'm going to get a Spore Mine tattoo because apparently that's going to continue to carry the faction through 10th edition. I've just
I
decided.
could probably get a Flyrant tattoo or if I was going to get anything, it would be a Flyrant tattoo or a Desolation Marine tattoo because those are the 2 things that have directly contributed the most to my 40k career. But I don't think either of those are really what I'm looking for.
Well, I know what you gotta
I've
get. You gotta get a tattoo of a Desolation Marine overwatching a solitaire.
The purple line, yeah. Doesn't deserve that.
I don't know. Otherwise, if I wanted to do the only thing that carried me to victory, it would be a freaking like Talos tattoo, basically, which would be really cool. But we'll think
Or
about it.
homunculus.
Or homunculus, or just Drazar's claves, I suppose that works too.
That would look cool.
You can get the Fight Club logo.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I would be tempted to get a Stat Check logo with all of you guys. I suppose that would be fine. We could do that as your first tattoo, Jeremy. Just the Stat Check logo.
No,
He's
it's gonna be
getting
the
cats.
cats.
I know it's the cats, but we could. I'm gonna skip Zane's question because it's not a question.
That's usually a good idea. Yeah, if it's not a question, we're not going to answer the question.
I mean, technically, it has lots of question marks, but
It's
is
not a
a
question.
question. Yeah. Jeff asks, aspiring forklift champion is my favorite extra bit for somebody's name in Discord. Is the trend of shooting getting better than melee that we have seen since 8th edition indicative of a moral deficiency afflicting the GOW's royalty? What a goddamn ridiculous question, and I love it.
Yes, I think it is.
Probably. We'll
combat
Look,
is
the
best
shooting
thing.
phase and its consequences are the worst thing for it.
We really should just all be playing fantasy where melee is just 90% of it.
Look, man, this podcast is just waiting for Old World at this point, right?
see. No, it's not.
Well, I am. You guys can do whatever you want.
We're just going to add another show, and that could be the Old World show.
If anybody wants to be my Old World podcast co-host, you have to love high elves and hate dwarves. Okay?
Can they like other factions other than High Elves?
Yeah, that's fine. As long as you like
They
high
just
elves like
have
me
to
and you
hate
hate dwarves like
dwarves.
me, that's fine.
Wouldn't
But
it be better to have like a foil? Someone who has the opposite?
no, I don't want to argue with somebody constantly about how
That is
dwarves suck.
90%. That is 90% of our current podcast, NS.
Yeah, I like elves in fantasy.
That's a grudging. Thanks, Chris.
That's a grudging. I don't
So
think
yeah,
we
anyway, we're accepting
any-
applications. The second Old World comes out.
I don't think we have any questions in YouTube chat. You have exactly 30 seconds to get those in before we close out shop.
Adam Hammer is a high elf stan. All I'm saying is, if you want to make the podcast of the World Dragon, I'm in.
Hadar's asking what the Patreon level is to change your Discord name. You should be able to do that if you are just a generic Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, we
member.
might change it back if you change it to something that sucks, but we reserve the right.
Anthony
Or-
asks, "Is Dark Elves okay for the impending Old World podcast show?"
No, but it's not okay. Like
I-
I would,
It's
if
better than
nothing
being
else
a
was
dwarf stan.
available. Yeah.
If April 1st is on a Tuesday, we should just make an Old World episode.
When can we say see Nathan's face again? Never. All you will ever see is his hand.
I mean, it depends. If you guys give me more money for seeing my face than you do for seeing my cat. No, I'm just kidding. As soon as the meta's better, as soon as the meta's better, I will stop doing emotional support cat. I promise.
So all I'm hearing is if it sucks, it's because GW wants to keep seeing your cat.
I mean, look, if GW wants to send me a message about how the cat makes them happy and they want to keep seeing cat, I'm fine with that.
So
Um,
mark it on your
yeah.
calendars. April 1st, 2025 is a Tuesday.
We might
Old
just
World
have an Old World
podcast
show
it
by
is.
We
then.
might have Old World
we
by
might
then, I
have an
know,
Old
but-
World show by then. Nathan was never seen again. Sometimes it does feel that way. My
Promise.
I love you too, buddy. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I got for questions. Nothing in YouTube chat. You're all just stuck with us for another 5 minutes while I wax philosophic. No, we're not. Innes, carry us out.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us for this pre-balanced data slate waiting room and the Death Guard memorial show, because unless the data slate is incredible, I'm never touching them again until 11th edition, where I will come out and win exactly one tournament with them again, and then retire them for another edition. Thank you so much for being here. Please do remember to check out youtube.com/c/statcheck, patreon.com/statcheck, coaching at stat-check.com is the email for getting in touch with us about coaching things. Enter the Matrix and Examon are both live on our YouTube show on Thursdays and Wednesdays on alternating weeks. And we'll catch you at 5 p.m. UK time on Thursday for what we hope is a post-balanced data slate world review. I'm going to have about 90 minutes to do that, and about 3 minutes to prepare for it, probably. So if that sounds like something that interests you, we'll hopefully have that out on all the platforms at some point as well. But otherwise, Nathan, take us out.
Wait, Calico.
Bye.
Oh, and Cali Cup.
Calico.
Yeah, if you're going to be at Cali Cup, please do remember to check out that thing. All the details for that should be in the show notes, and we'll have the proper full announcement with like all the stuff go up on like social media and stuff like that. We'll probably make a little YouTube short for it as well, as of the second that's live.
There will be some Eventbrite links and stuff like that for tickets
Yep.
and things. On that note, everyone have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.